In the annals of Hollywood history, no genre holds as iconic a status as the Western. From the dusty red skies and the thunder of horse hooves on cracked earth, to the blazing gunfights under the scorching sun, it all paints a nostalgic picture of a wild, rugged America brimming with heroic ideals. The cowboys on screen are more than just characters. They are cultural symbols, embodying a spirit of boundless adventure and freedom. Among the countless faces that have graced the Western, the 12 names below are artists who have ascended into legend. Before donning their cowboy hats, each embarked on a unique career journey. Some emerged from the stage, others matured through dramatic roles, and some were even real-life war heroes. When they arrived in the Western genre, they redefined the cowboy image on screen. And afterward, each followed a distinct path. Some became towering figures, others quietly left the limelight, and some entered their twilight years with the profound respect of all Hollywood. This commentary will deeply analyze each actor. 1. Robert Duvall, the quiet cowboy of intense inner strength. Robert Duvall began his career in New York theater and television, notably appearing in To Kill a Mockingbird 1962 as Boo Radley, a role with few lines but deeply haunting, showcasing his ability to convey character through interiority and gaze. Throughout the 60s and 70s, he garnered attention in The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, and independent dramas. When he played cowboys, the Western wasn't just a side venture, but a definitive hallmark for Duvall. His role as Gus McCrae in Lonesome Dove 1989 is considered one of the greatest cowboy performances of all time, a man both strong, humorous, and filled with the loneliness of the frontier. His other Western films include Joe Kidd 1972, Open Range 2003, and Second-Hand Lions 2003, with a Western flavor. After the Western era, Duvall continued to prove his caliber with a string of major films. The Godfather 1972, Apocalypse Now 1979, The Apostle 1997, The Judge 2014. He received one Academy Award and numerous other nominations. As of 2025, Robert Duvall is still alive, turning 94, occasionally appearing in special interviews. He is regarded as one of the last great oaks of classical Hollywood. 2. Tommy Lee Jones, the intellectual, rugged, and profound cowboy. Before becoming a familiar face in modern westerns, Tommy Lee Jones had an impressive academic and theatrical career. He graduated from Harvard, was a roommate of Al Gore, and began acting with dramatic roles in the 1970s, such as Love Story 1970, Jackson County Jail 1976, and notably as a political analyst in The Executioner's Song 1982, which earned him an Emmy. His cool, sharp, and laconic acting style immediately marked him in Hollywood as an actor capable of bringing depth to tough characters. When he played cowboys, Tommy Lee Jones is one of the rare stars who has anchored himself in the Western genre across multiple decades. His cowboy roles are not defined by fiery gunfights, but by a blend of psychology, philosophy, and the grittiness of the Old West. Some standout Western roles: Lonesome Dove 1989, as Woodrow F. Call, a complete contrast to Robert Duvall's Gus McCrae. A man of principle, rigid to the point of ruthlessness, depicting the tragedy of loneliness and responsibility. The Missing 2003, a neo-Western cowboy, both fierce and deeply tormented. The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada 2005, not only acted but also directed. The film is considered one of the most humane westerns of the 2000s. No Country for Old Men 2007, with little need for gunplay, his role as Sheriff Ed Tom Bell conveyed powerlessness against a changing, violent world. A true modern western. After the Western era, Jones continued his success with major films like The Fugitive 1993, earning him an Oscar, Men in Black 1997, Lincoln 2012, Jason Bourne 2016. He became known for his cool, minimalist yet incredibly powerful acting style, considered to be extending the spirit of the cowboy into contemporary cinema. As of 2025, Tommy Lee Jones is still alive, at 79, living reclusively on his large Texas ranch. He rarely appears in public, only occasionally taking on projects he genuinely loves. Hollywood considers him the last cowboy of the 20th century. 3. Yul Brynner, Hollywood's royal cowboy. Before becoming the legendary cowboy of the Magnificent Seven, Yul Brynner was famous for his Eastern Prince persona. Born in Russia, raised in China and Paris, Brynner entered Hollywood with enigmatic roles. He made a massive splash as King Monket in The King and I 1956, earning him a Best Actor Oscar and making his shaved head an international trademark. Key pre-Western films include The Ten Commandments 1956 as the powerful Ramesses, Anastasia 1956 as Prince Baunine, Solomon and Sheba 1959, continuing his strong aristocratic image. Brynner entered Hollywood with an image of sophistication, mystery, and power qualities that would forge a completely different kind of cowboy. When he played Cowboys, Brynner's transformative role was Chris Adams in The Magnificent Seven 1960. Not a dusty cowboy type, Brynner brought the aura of a leader to the Western calm, strong, without unnecessary words. His shaved head, muscular physique, and sharp gaze made Chris Adams one of the most iconic cowboys in cinematic history. He continued his association with westerns through films. Return of the Seven 1966, reprising his role as Chris. Invitation to a Gunfighter 1964, a cowboy with aristocratic flair. Artio Sabata 1970, a Spanish western, rich in adventure. Another pinnacle for Brynner in westerns and science fiction was Westworld 1973, where he played a killer robot cowboy, creating a pioneering cold gunman archetype. After the Western era, Brynner continued acting, but not at the peak of his 1950s-1960s fame. He dedicated much time to Broadway, reprising The King and I over 4,600 times, a rare record. In his later years, he became an anti-smoking icon after being diagnosed with lung cancer. His final message, "Don't smoke," became one of the most touching from a Hollywood star. Yul Brynner passed away in 1985. At age 65, Hollywood regards him as the regal man who walked into the Wild West and made it legendary. 4. Lee Van Cleef, the steel face of spaghetti westerns. Before becoming Sergio Leone's dagger-eyed cowboy, Lee Van Cleef began his career in theater and supporting roles in film noir, crime, and war films. He first appeared in High Noon 1952 as Jack Colby, a non-speaking role that left a strong impression to his angular face and sharp gaze, like someone always ready to strike. Throughout the 1950s, Van Cleef was often typecast as a villain. Kansas City Confidential 1952, The Big Combo 1955, The Nebraskan 1953. Despite frequent appearances, his career didn't truly take off. A serious car accident in 1958 almost cost him his acting career due to severe knee injuries, leaving him with mostly minor roles for the next 2 years. When he played Cowboys, a turning point came when Sergio Leone recognized Van Cleef's unmistakable face and cast him in Italian westerns, spaghetti westerns. Roles that turned him into a legend. Colonel Douglas Mortimer in For a Few Dollars More 1965. Angel Eyes in The Good, the Bad and the Ugly 1966. Angel Eyes is one of the greatest villains in cinematic history. Cold, ruthless, with an unblinking gaze, both intelligent and malicious. Van Cleef stood alongside Clint Eastwood and Eli Wallach, forming the golden trio of spaghetti westerns. Other notable westerns: Death Rides a Horse 1967, Sabata 1969, El Condor 1970, Return of Sabata 1971. Van Cleef's style was characterized by an intensely cool demeanor, few words, and power emanating entirely from his razor-sharp eyes. After the Western era, after the 1970s, as westerns declined, Van Cleef shifted to be great action films, but retained a loyal fan base. A late notable role in his career was Escape from New York 1981, where Van Cleef still showcased his cold, tough acting ability. Lee Van Cleef passed away in 1989, at 64, from a heart attack. Today, he is considered the greatest villain face of the Western, one of those actors who could make an impression that lasted decades with just a few seconds on screen. 5. Henry Fonda, the cowboy with the face of American morality. Henry Fonda was one of the great pillars of classical Hollywood, and before setting foot in the Western, he was the face representing American integrity, conscience, and dignity. In the 1930s-1940s, Fonda was associated with deep dramatic roles. The Grapes of Wrath 1940, his role as Tom Joad earned an Oscar nomination. The image of a poor but resilient man became an icon of the Great Depression. Young Mr. Lincoln 1939, one of the roles that laid the foundation for an American cinematic legend. The Lady Eve 1941, showcasing his subtle comedic ability, a stark contrast to his usual serious image. He was not just an A-list actor, but also the king of leading men before his peak Western era, when he played cowboys. Henry Fonda entered the Western genre with a distinct demeanor. He was not the gunslinging cowboy type, but rather a character of morality, intellect, even an educated look amidst the Wild West. Typical Westerns. My Darling Clementine 1946, as Wyatt Earp, serious, quiet, but full of authority. Fort Apache 1948, one of John Ford's classics, opposite John Wayne. The Oxbow Incident 1943, a heavy psychological Western, reflecting the dark side of mob violence. Warlock 1959, a mature, complex cowboy type. But the Western, history-shaking moment came in 1968. Once Upon a Time in the West 1968, as Frank. For the first time in his career, Fonda transformed into a brutal killer, even murdering children. Just the opening scene, when Fonda steps out with a cold, menacing blue-eyed gaze, the entire cinematic world had to admit, Henry Fonda was not just a good man, he was a great actor who could embody any role. After the Western era, Fonda continued to star in many highly regarded films. 12 Angry Men 1957, as juror number 8, one of the greatest roles in film history. Failsafe 1964, Battle of the Bulge 1965. In his twilight years, Henry Fonda still shone with. On Golden Pond 1981, his role as Norman Thayer, earning him his first Best Actor Oscar after nearly 50 years in the business. Henry Fonda passed away in 1982. At 77, today, he is remembered as the man who brought American morality to the screen, and one of the greatest actors of the 20th century. 6. Richard Widmark, the perfect villain who entered the West with a rugged spirit. Richard Widmark began his career in film noir, and in his very first role, he created one of the most shocking debuts in Hollywood history. In Kiss of Death 1947, Widmark played Tommy Udo, a psychopathic criminal with a grotesque laugh and a scene where he pushes an old woman in a wheelchair down a flight of stairs. This role immediately earned him an Oscar nomination and cemented him as Hollywood's most dangerous villain. Before Westerns, he focused on films like Panic in the Streets 1950, Night and the City 1950, No Way Out 1950, opposite Sidney Poitier, Pickup on South Street 1953, one of his toughest roles. Though often typecast as villains, Widmark possessed deep acting ability, always combining outward ruthlessness with an inherent loneliness when he played cowboys. Widmark's presence in Westerns always carried a special nuance, not a purely righteous cowboy, but often a complex character, easily provoked, with many hidden facets. His classic Westerns include Yellow Sky 1948, opposite Gregory Peck, a role that began his presence in the West. The Law and Jake Wade 1958, co-starring Robert Taylor. Widmark played a villain with a mesmerizing, cold performance. Warlock 1959, opposite Henry Fonda and Anthony Quinn. Woodmark played the town's marshal, embodying integrity under immense pressure. To Rode Together 1961, a John Ford film, Woodmark co-starred with James Stewart. What set Woodmark apart was his infusion of film noir spirit into the Western, cold, soft-spoken yet dangerous, with a challenging half-smile. He was the kind of cowboy who didn't need to shoot much, but his mere presence changed the atmosphere. After the Western era, Woodmark shifted to war and political dramas. Judgment at Nuremberg 1961, The Longships 1964, Murder on the Orient Express 1974, a memorable role as the Italian wizard. Coma 1978, a sci-fi flavored villain role. From the 1980s, he largely retired from acting to focus on family life and social activism, opposing gun violence despite having played dozens of gun-wielding roles. Richard Woodmark passed away in 2008, at 93. Today, Woodmark is remembered as a versatile and resilient actor, both a noir icon, the dark side of the Western, and someone who could elevate any villain role with his characteristic sharp gaze. 7. Audie Murphy, the battlefield hero who became a cowboy on screen. Audie Murphy was unlike any other Western star because he didn't come from the stage, didn't study acting formally, and didn't come to Hollywood out of artistic passion. Murphy entered cinema from real-life glory. He was the most decorated soldier in U.S. military history in World War II. Received 33 medals, including the Medal of Honor. Single-handedly held off an entire German company at the Battle of Holzwihr. His courageous story was known across America, making Murphy a patriotic symbol to the public. After discharge, he appeared on the cover of Life magazine, which was his serendipitous introduction to Hollywood. Murphy's early films leaned towards war and biography, such as Beyond Glory 1948, Bad Boy 1949. Though humble, quiet, and smaller in stature than many other stars, Murphy possessed a sharp gaze and the genuine experience of someone who had faced death more than once, something directors immediately recognized. When he played Cowboys, Hollywood quickly realized Murphy was a perfect fit for the Western genre that celebrated courage, solitude, and grit. Murphy starred in over 40 Westerns, becoming one of the most familiar faces of the 1950s-1960s West. Notable films: The Kid from Texas 1950, A Different Billy the Kid, quiet, subdued, and realistic. Winchester 73 1950, co-starring James Stewart. A major career step, The Duel at Silver Creek 1952. No Name on the Bullet 1959, as the cold and mysterious assassin John Gant, considered Murphy's best role. Ride a Crook Trail 1958. The Special Thing. Unlike glamorous Hollywood cowboys, Murphy embodied a very real ruggedness. Audiences believed he knew how to shoot, how to live in danger, because he had done it in real life, after the Western era. In the late 1960s, as Westerns declined, Murphy began to transition to television and more contemporary roles. However, he struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD), sleep disturbances, and financial pressure. In his personal life, Murphy was extremely humble, often speaking out about the pain of returning soldiers. He also wrote his autobiography, To Hell and Back, then starred in its film adaptation 1955, making it one of the most introspective roles of his career. Audie Murphy passed away in 1971 in a plane crash at just 45 years old. He is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, alongside the soldiers he fought with. Today, Murphy is remembered not just as a cinematic cowboy, but as a true hero, one of Hollywood's most unique life stories. 8. Randolph Scott, the quintessential gentleman cowboy of classical Hollywood. Randolph Scott began his career in theater and historical roles before becoming the archetypal cowboy face of Hollywood. In the 1930s, he starred in many adventure and romantic films, projecting an image of a suave gentleman. She 1935, fantasy adventure. The Last of the Mohicans 1936. In the lead role, establishing his strong physique and upright demeanor. Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm 1938, a famous family film with Shirley Temple. Before Westerns, Scott wasn't a superstar, but he had a solid foundation, tall, handsome, with a deep voice and innate gentility elements that would later perfectly align with the cowboy image. When he played cowboys, if one had to choose an actor born to wear a cowboy hat, ride a horse, and uphold frontier law, would be Randolph Scott. From the 1940s to the 1950s, Scott became one of the biggest Western icons, starring in over 60 cowboy films. Notable films: Coroner Creek 1948, marking a transition to more serious Westerns. The Nevada 1950. Buchanan Rides Alone 1958. Ride the High Country 1962, his final masterpiece, opposite Joel McCrea. What made Scott different? He wasn't the violent cowboy type. Not flashy, not aggressive, not artificial. Always maintained a calm, chivalrous, honorable demeanor, the true gentleman of the West. Scott became a role model for subsequent generations, like Joel McCrea or a later style Gary Cooper. Simplicity, honesty, and a mature masculinity after the Western era. Unlike many other stars who continued to diversify their acting, Randolph Scott almost completely retired after Ride the High Country 1962. He believed he had a perfect ending and didn't want to break the ideal cowboy image that millions of fans loved. After leaving Hollywood, he became a successful investor, living a private life, free of scandals or media involvement. Randolph Scott passed away in 1987, at 89. Today, he is considered one of the most authentic cowboys on screen, not fierce like Eastwood, not cold like Van Cleef, not humorous like Wayne, but truly embodying a man of the West with the highest dignity. 9. Joel McCrea, Hollywood's calmest, most upright, and enduring cowboy. Before becoming one of the most beloved Western faces, Joel McCrea was a versatile star of 1930s, 1940s Hollywood. He didn't start as a cowboy, but as a romantic comedy, drama, and adventure actor, key pre-Western films. Sullivan's Travels, 1941, by Preston Sturges, the male lead in one of history's greatest comedic satirical films. The More the Merrier, 1943, a charming romantic role, earning an Oscar nomination for co-star Jean Arthur. Foreign Correspondent, 1940, Alfred Hitchcock spy film, helping McCrea stand out as a reliable dramatic actor. Dead End, 1937, mature, dignified acting. Before Westerns, McCrea was considered Hollywood's good gentleman, tall, calm, scandal-free, an ideal American archetype during the Golden Age. When he played cowboys, from the late 1940s, McCrea shifted almost entirely to Westerns, and this is where he found his true identity. McCrea never tried to be overtly tough or heroic. Instead, he brought to Westerns calmness, dignity, intelligence, a natural sense of chivalry. Audiences believed he was a true cowboy because he rode horses expertly, shot accurately, and only acted when necessary. Notable Westerns: Colorado Territory 1949, one of the finest noir westerns. The Virginian 1946, embodying the quintessential cowboy. Stars in My Crown 1950, a deep psychological religious film. Wichita 1955, as Wyatt Earp, quiet yet authoritative. Trooper Hook 1957, especially. Ride the High Country 1962, Sam Peckinpah's masterpiece, where McCrea starred opposite Randolph Scott. This is considered McCrea's finest role, a man of integrity, the last of his kind in a fading West. After the Western era, after Ride the High Country, McCrea largely retired. He returned to his thousands of acres ranch in California, living true to the authentic cowboy spirit. Riding horses daily, not chasing fame, doing charity. Spending time with family. Occasionally, He appeared in some TV shows or minor films, but never changed his calm and kind demeanor. Joel McCrea passed away in 1990, at 84. Today, McCrea is considered the most authentic cowboy, not for being fierce, but for his kindness, integrity, and a lifestyle that was more real than film. 10. Charlton Heston. Overall career. Charlton Heston, born October 4, 1923, died April 5, 2008, was one of the greatest actors of Hollywood's golden age, renowned for his heroic, majestic roles in epic films. With his tall stature, chiseled face, and booming voice, he seemed born to play legendary figures of historical impact. He won an Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in Ben-Hur. Notable films before playing cowboys. Before venturing into the Western genre, Heston had an illustrious career with countless classic roles, establishing him as the hero of the big screen. The Ten Commandments, 1956, he played Moses, an iconic role that propelled him to superstardom. The image of Moses parting the Red Sea remains one of the most memorable scenes in cinematic history. Ben-Hur, 1959, his portrayal of Judah Ben-Hur earned him an Oscar and solidified his status as a leading star. The chariot race scene in the film is still considered a masterpiece. Touch of Evil, 1958, though not a traditional leading man, Heston made a strong impression in Orson Welles' film noir. Planet of the Apes, 1968. His role as astronaut George Taylor in this science fiction classic demonstrated his diverse acting ability, moving beyond his historical hero image. When he played cowboys, although not his primary forte like epic films, Charlton Heston also had several notable cowboy roles, often portraying characters with depth, iconic presence, or as tough, principled men. Major Dundee, 1965. He played Major Amos Charles Dundee, a U.S. Army officer during the Civil War, leading a motley crew in pursuit of Apache Native Americans. This was a Western with strong anti-heroic, gritty elements. Will Penny, 1968. This is perhaps his most acclaimed cowboy role, where he played an aging, solitary cowboy facing the hardships of life and the brutality of the West. This performance showcased a more rustic, introspective Heston, far from his usual majestic image. After playing cowboys, after this period, Charlton Heston continued his career with many films across various genres, particularly disaster and science fiction films. Soylent Green, 1973, a classic science fiction film with a profound environmental message. He also appeared in numerous television shows, and continued his acting career until his later years, primarily in supporting or cameo roles. Charlton Heston passed away on April 5, 2008, at the age of 84, due to complications from pneumonia. Prior to that, in 2002, he publicly announced his diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. He is regarded as one of the last legends of Hollywood's golden age, leaving behind a rich cinematic legacy and an indelible image in the hearts of audiences. He was also a controversial figure in politics, having served as president of the National Rifle Association (NRA) for many years. He will forever be remembered as a symbol of strength, courage, and unwavering resolve. 11. Kris Kristofferson, the nomad with a poet's heart, traversing the West with rare grit. Kris Kristofferson was always a special case in Hollywood, a man who was simultaneously a singer, songwriter, actor, cultural icon, and a true artistic wanderer. Before appearing in Western films, he had already penned classics like Me and Bobby McGee, Help Me Make It Through the Night, and For the Good Times, songs that made Nashville bow. His musical career was so brilliant that Hollywood itself had to take notice of this man with a weathered appearance and a voice as deep and rich as the earth of the vast West. Before playing cowboys, Kristofferson began his film career in the early 1970s with roles that carried a rebellious, gritty edge. He gained attention in Martin Scorsese's Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore 1974 and A Star Is Born 1976, a film that earned him a Golden Globe Award. His cool face, tired but honest eyes, coupled with real-life experience, made him perfectly suited for cowboy roles or melancholic Western men when he played cowboys. His most notable cowboy film was Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid 1973, where Kristofferson played Billy the Kid, a bold choice given he wasn't primarily an action actor. But his honesty, insolence, and subtle performance created a different kind of Billy the Kid, quiet, contemplative, and poetic. He later appeared in Heaven's Gate 1980, a controversial work that gradually became a reevaluated film and is now seen as an ambitious and tragic Western after playing cowboys. Entering the late 1980s and 1990s, Kristofferson continued to be a familiar face, especially with his role as Whistler in the Blade film series, bringing him closer to a younger generation of audiences. At the same time, he continued to write and perform music, becoming one of the Highwaymen, a legendary country music supergroup with Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and Willie Nelson. Kris Kristofferson is still alive, though he retired due to declining health after 2021. Born in 1936, he is now nearly 90 years old. Despite no longer being active, he is still considered one of America's most versatile artists, a poet, a troubadour, and an irreplaceable cultural icon. 12. Harrison Ford. Overall career. Harrison Ford, born July 13, 1942, is one of the most successful and beloved actors of all time, famous for his heroic action roles with a touch of wit, intelligence, and sometimes irreverence. He has defined many iconic characters in cinematic history, becoming a global superstar with diverse versatility and powerful screen presence. With a career spanning over 6 decades, Ford has consistently maintained his position as one of the highest-grossing actors of all time. Notable films before playing cowboys. Although not exclusively a Western actor, Harrison Ford became a superstar with a series of classic roles in science fiction and adventure genres before truly embodying characters close to the cowboy archetype. American Graffiti 1973. This was one of his earliest roles. Though supporting, it helped him establish a relationship with George Lucas. Star Wars Episode IV, A New Hope 1977. His role as Han Solo, a charming and rebellious smuggler pilot, transformed him into an international star. He reprised this role in subsequent Star Wars installments, becoming one of the most beloved characters of all time. Apocalypse Now 1979. He had a memorable supporting role in this classic war film. Blade Runner 1982. His role as Rick Deckard, a replicant hunter in a dystopian world, affirmed Ford's complex acting abilities in the sci-fi noir genre. Raiders of the Lost Ark 1981. This was the first film in the Indiana Jones series, where Ford embodied the archaeologist and adventurer Indiana Jones. With his fedora, bullwhip, and quick wit, Indiana Jones became a cultural icon and one of his career-defining roles. The series continued with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom 1984 and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade 1989, solidifying his status as a top action star. When he played cowboys, although not a traditional cowboy in the style of John Wayne or Clint Eastwood, Harrison Ford brought a modern, gritty, and realistic cowboy style to some of his roles, especially in films where he embodied the spirit of the contemporary Western man. Cowboys and Aliens 2011. This is his most explicit Western film. Ford played Colonel Woodrow Dolar-Hyde, a tough and powerful rancher who must team up with an amnesiac stranger, Daniel Craig, to fight an alien invasion in the 1870s West. He delivered a portrayal of a seasoned, strong, and experienced cowboy, though not a pure Western. The spirit of characters like Indiana Jones, with their independence, adventurous spirit, and ability to navigate harsh environments, shares many similarities with the classic cowboy archetype. After playing cowboys, Harrison Ford has continued his illustrious acting career, with diverse roles in both commercial and independent films. The Expendables 3 2014. He joined the all-star cast in this action film. Star Wars, The Force Awakens 2015 and Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker 2019. He reprised his role as Han Solo, much to the delight of fans. Blade Runner 2049 2017. He returned as Rick Deckard, receiving much critical acclaim. The Call of the Wild 2020. An adventure film where he portrayed a character connected to the wilderness. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny 2023. He continued to don Indiana Jones' fedora at age 80, showcasing his endurance and love for the role. He also participated in television series such as 1923 and Shrinking, demonstrating his versatility. Harrison Ford is still alive and actively pursuing his artistic endeavors at 81 as of 2024. He is one of the few veteran action stars who has maintained his charisma and ability to star in major projects. He retains a unique persona, constantly challenging himself with new roles, and is a living icon of Hollywood. Beyond acting, he is also known for his passion for flying planes and is an environmental activist. He is a living testament to a sustainable and highly successful cinematic career. Which cowboy is your favorite? And if you enjoyed this video, please like and follow my channel to continue our journey exploring actors and the world of Hollywood.